Sergeant Caleb Thorne came home not with a parade but with a limp and a duffel bag full of dirty laundry. The war had taken a piece of his thigh, but he thought it had spared his heart. He was wrong. He stood before the peeling paint of his small porch. He hadn't seen his wife, Melissa, in 2 years. With a heavy sigh, he opened the door, the hinges creaking in the silence. "Melissa, I'm home," he called out. She was there in the hallway, surrounded by suitcases. She didn't run to him. She stared at his leg, at the cane he leaned on. Her eyes weren't filled with tears of joy, but with cold calculation. "You're crippled," she said, the words hanging in the air like smoke. "It's just a limp, Mel," Caleb replied, shifting his weight. "I can still work. I can still." She cut him off sharply. "I can't do this, Caleb. I can't be a nursemaid. And I can't handle them anymore." She gestured to the living room. 4 children, ranging from 4 to 12, sat on the couch in silence. Caleb knew them, of course. He had accepted them when he married her, though none were his blood. But looking at them now, he saw the truth in their faces, the resemblance to the neighbor, to the grocer, to men he used to call friends. "I'm leaving," Melissa said, picking up her bag. "Gary is waiting in the truck. You wanted to be a hero. Be a hero for them." The door slammed shut behind her. Outside, a truck engine roared and faded away, leaving only the sound of a baby crying in the distance. The silence Melissa left behind was heavier than mortar fire. Caleb looked at the 4 children. There was Leo, 12, with eyes full of anger. Maya, 10, clutching a rag doll. Sammy, 7, picking his nose nervously. And little Chloe, 4, who just started to wail. "All right. Okay," Caleb said softly, trying to steady his voice. "Who's hungry?" Leo scoffed, crossing his arms. "You can't cook. You're just a soldier. Mom said you were barely human." Caleb looked the boy in the eye. "Mom isn't here, Leo. I am." That first night was a battlefield. There was no food in the fridge. Caleb, his leg throbbing with a phantom fire, boiled pasta that turned into mush. The children ate in silence, watching him like he was a bomb about to go off. He wasn't their father by blood, and tonight, he barely felt like their guardian. He felt like the last man standing in a ruined city. The next morning brought the sun, and with it, the state. A knock came at the door, sharp and authoritative. "Mr. Thorne, I'm Sarah Jenkins, Child Protective Services," the woman said. "We received a call from a neighbor about abandonment." Sarah Jenkins was young, with hair pulled back in a severe bun that couldn't quite hide the softness of her eyes. She held a clipboard like a shield. "My wife left," Caleb explained, leaning on the doorframe. "I didn't abandon anyone." Sarah looked him over critically. "You're disabled, Mr. Thorne. You have no income, 4 children who aren't biologically yours, and a house falling apart. I'm here to assess if these children need to be taken into care." Caleb's voice rose, edged with panic. "Taken? These are my kids. I promise to look after them." "Promises don't buy groceries, Sergeant," Sarah said, making a note on her clipboard. "I'll be watching. You have 1 week to prove this is a stable environment, or I take them." The war wasn't just with the system, it was inside the walls. Leo, the oldest, was testing the perimeter. A lamp crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. "Leo, pick up that lamp," Caleb shouted. "Make me, cripple." Leo yelled back. "You're not my dad. My dad is probably some rich guy Mom met at a bar." Caleb wanted to shout. He wanted to use his command voice. But he looked at the boy, really looked at him, and saw the same terror he'd seen in young recruits' eyes before a patrol. He exhaled slowly. "You're right. I'm not your dad. But I'm the guy who's staying. And right now, I'm the guy fixing this lamp. You can help, or you can watch." Leo didn't help. But he didn't leave the room either. He watched as Caleb, sweating and wincing, swept up the glass. It was a draw. The war wasn't just with the system, it was inside the walls. Leo, the oldest, was testing the perimeter. A lamp crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. "Leo, pick up that lamp," Caleb shouted. "Make me, cripple." Leo yelled back. "You're not my dad. My dad is probably some rich guy Mom met at a bar." Caleb wanted to shout. He wanted to use his command voice. But he looked at the boy, really looked at him, and saw the same terror he'd seen in young recruits' eyes before a patrol. He exhaled slowly. "You're right. I'm not your dad. But I'm the guy who's staying. And right now, I'm the guy fixing this lamp. You can help, or you can watch." Leo didn't help. But he didn't leave the room either. He watched as Caleb, sweating and wincing, swept up the glass. It was a draw. Life began to find a rhythm. A limping, chaotic rhythm. Mornings became a drill of sizzling bacon and lost shoes. Maya, hair up. Sammy, shoes on, not on your hands, on your feet. Chloe, eat the toast, Caleb would command. He ran the house like a platoon. He made chore charts. He taught them to fold their blankets with military precision. At first, they hated it. But there was security in the routine. Breakfast was at 0700. Bus at 0730. Sarah Jenkins watched him from her car parked down the street. She expected to see a disaster. Instead, she saw a man braiding a 4-year-old's hair with hands that had held rifles. It was crooked, but it held. A storm hit on a Tuesday. Thunder rolled across the sky, and the old roof over the boys' room gave way. Water poured in. "It's ruining my comics," Leo cried out in panic. "Grab the bucket. Maya, towels," Caleb yelled. Caleb climbed the ladder in the driving rain. His bad leg slipped on the wet shingles, sending pain shooting up his spine. He gritted his teeth and hammered the tarp down, blow after blow. When he came down, soaked and shivering, Leo was waiting with a dry towel. "You didn't fall," the boy said, sounding surprised. "Not today, kid," Caleb replied. It was the first time Leo looked at him with respect instead of disdain. The rivalry began on a Sunday. Sarah had come by for a surprise inspection, only to find Isabella Vance already there. "I've brought a caterer, Mr. Thorne," Isabella said haughtily. "Coco Vin. Much better than whatever, stew, you were planning." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Thorne, is this woman a relative? Stability is key for the children, not catering." "She's just a friend, Sarah," Caleb said quickly. "Isabella, this is the social worker." Isabella brought gifts, expensive toys that the kids fought over. Sarah brought a bag of second-hand clothes that actually fit, and a casserole she'd made herself. "You cook?" Caleb asked Sarah, surprised. "I eat," she replied dryly. "And I know you're too proud to ask for help with the laundry, Caleb." He noticed she used his first name. He liked the way it sounded. Sammy got into a fight. A bully made fun of his limping fake dad. When Caleb arrived at the principal's office, he found his son bruised but defiant. "Your son broke another boy's nose, Mr. Thorne," the principal said sternly. Caleb looked at Sammy. "Why'd you do it, Sam?" "He called you a cripple," Sammy whispered. Caleb's heart broke and healed in the same second. He knelt down, wincing slightly. "I am a cripple, Sammy," he said gently. "But I'm your cripple. Next time, use your words." "But, good hook." He walked out of that school holding Sammy's hand tight. He was winning the war. Isabella Vance made her move. She invited Caleb to her estate while the doctor was away at a conference. Soft classical music played in the background as they sat amidst fine china. "Why struggle, Caleb?" she asked. "I can pay for a nanny. I can fix your roof. I can send the children to boarding school. We could travel. You deserve to be taken care of after your service." "Boarding school?" Caleb asked, his brow furrowing. "They're not yours, Caleb," Isabella said, leaning in. "They're a burden. I want you, not the baggage." Caleb stood up. The luxury around him suddenly felt like a cage. "They aren't baggage, Isabella," he said firmly. "They're my squad. And I don't leave men behind." Sarah's supervisor wasn't convinced. The reports showed insufficient income and single disabled parent. They moved to separate the children into foster homes. "You can't do this," Sarah argued desperately. "He's doing a better job than half the biological parents in this town." "The paperwork is signed, Sarah." "It's over," her supervisor replied coldly. Sarah drove to Caleb's house in the middle of the night. She was crying when he opened the door. "They're coming tomorrow, Caleb. I tried to stop them." Caleb remained steely calm. "Then we fight." "How do we stop them?" "We need a legal injunction," Sarah said, wiping her eyes. "Or, a change in status. A stable, two-parent household is almost impossible to break up." Caleb paused. A two-parent household? It wasn't a romance born of candlelight. It was born of survival, with the rain falling softly outside. "Marry me," Caleb said. Sarah looked at him, shocked. "What? Not for the court?" "Well, for the court, yes. But, Sarah, you're the only one who sees us. You see Leo's anger and Sammy's fear and you don't run. You fight for them. And you?" she asked softly. I think I've been falling in love with you since you told me my pasta looked like glue." Sarah looked at the tired soldier, the man who had glued a family back together with nothing but grit. "It was glue," she laughed through her tears. "But I'll marry you, Caleb Thorne." The hearing was tense. Isabella Vance was there, testifying that Caleb was unfit, bitter from his rejection. But then, the children spoke. "He didn't leave," Leo said, his voice cracking. "Everyone leaves. Mom left. My real dads, whoever they aren't here. Caleb stayed. He's my dad." Then Sarah stood up, hand in hand with Caleb. "We are married, Your Honor," she declared. "We are a family, and we are keeping these children." The judge looked at the papers, at the weeping Isabella, at the stoic soldier, and the defiant social worker. He banged his gavel. Case dismissed. The children remain with Mr. and Mrs. Thorne. Isabella came by one last time. She saw Caleb pushing Chloe on a tire swing, Sarah laughing on the porch. "You chose the hard life, Caleb," she said from the window of her car. "No, Isabella," Caleb replied, smiling at his wife. "I chose the real life." She drove away, her pristine car looking out of place on the dirt road. She had money, but she realized, with a pang of envy, she didn't have a home. 5 years later, the roof was fixed, and the garden was overgrown but alive. Leo was heading to college. Maya was painting on the porch. Sammy was captain of the wrestling team. Chloe was running around with a new puppy. And in Sarah's arms was baby Jack, their son, the 5th child, the bridge between the broken past and the healed future. Caleb sat on the porch step, rubbing his bad leg. It still hurt when it rained. But as he looked at his wife, at the chaotic, loud, beautiful mess of a family he had chosen and fought for, he realized the war was over. Mission accomplished, he whispered to himself. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a father. And under the roof of the soldier's hearth, no one was ever left behind again.